Hello, hello. It is Monday, the 21st of April, 2025. I'm Graham Hughes. You're watching Morning Brew on Politics Social. Hello to everyone in the chat. Sarah Davidson there. Yeah, I spoke to Rachel. She's okay at the moment. She went to the big protest yesterday. Oh, sorry, Saturday in London, which was very well attended. Chris C is in the chat as well. We've all got Simon Smith, Martin Harrow, Graham Haller in there. One Angry Pagan. Morning, Ivan says, Diz, how are you all doing? If you would like to join our friends in the chat here, become a socialite, all you need to do is hit that subscribe button. That'll be a troll, or we'll just mute you, and then you'll be able to watch, but you won't be able to comment. So don't be a dick. Right, today we're going to be talking about second jobs, third jobs, fourth jobs, or in the case of Nigel Farage, 9 jobs. 9 jobs, Nigel has 9 different jobs out of Parliament that we know about. There's probably some more. It's just disgraceful. This is something that Labour said they were going to get rid of, and they still haven't, and they seem to have watered down any plans to do so, which is beyond irritating, right? And I'll tell you why, right? This is an injustice. This is like something that the rich, privileged, privately educated ponces in Parliament do because it's the way it's always been done, darling. And they get away with it. And 9 times out of 10, the people doing it are, Labour MPs do it as well, but it's generally speaking Conservative or right-wing MPs. The king of the grift being the side hustle, the moonlighting being the bollocked face, foghorn of ignorance himself, Nigel Farage. The MPs who are doing these second jobs are absolutely taking the piss. They already get about £90,000 a year for being an MP. For being an MP. And a job that comes with some of the best holiday pay you could possibly imagine. You get weeks off over Christmas, you get weeks off over Easter, you get weeks off all over the summer, just like if you're a school teacher. But whereas school teachers do have to do a bit of work over the holidays and formulate lesson plans and things like that, a lot of these MPs do bugger all. They go on holiday. They don't care. They're in it for the money. They're not in it to help you or me or anyone. So, it's just the way it is. I'm going to set up a goal. Let's see if we can get 10 super chats, any colour, and that'll go for 45 minutes. And if we get the 10 super chats, I'll do an extra 15 minutes. Does that sound like a deal? Does that sound like a deal? There you go. That'll do. Start goal. Okay. Right. So when you're ready to start the goal, let's do it now. Pope has cocked. Oh shit! What? What? Okay. Well, this had to, what? Oh wow! Pope Francis has just died. Jesus. Okay. Oh, well, that changes things. That happened. That's breaking news on the BBC at 1:09. He's died at the age of 88. Oh, why? Well, he was in hospital. He didn't think he was coming out, and then he came out. He did the Easter. He came out for Easter. People got to see him. Oh, this is going to, short while ago, His Eminence Cardinal Farrell announced with sorrow the death of Pope Francis with these words: "Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis." At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of his father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his church. That's it. So yeah, he's shuffled off this mortal coil. 88, good innings. It was a bit unusual growing up with a pope that was around for ages, because I think Pope John Paul II was pope for about 20 years. No, it couldn't have been that. Yeah, it would have been. It was more than 20 years. So we didn't have a pope, and then suddenly we had this other pope, Ratzenberger, and no one liked him. And so he stood down. So we had this time when there were 2 popes alive, which I don't think had ever happened before. But now they're going to have to go into, what is it, Conclave? I still haven't watched that movie. We should watch that movie, Conclave. God, this is getting derailed, isn't it? He died yesterday, says Veg Pie. Oh, okay. No, wait, today. Okay, thanks, Veg Pie. Veg Pie just confused me. Well, actually, I knew I knew yesterday that he was dead. MPs are still doing constituency work during parliamentary recess. Well, some of them are. Yeah, Richard Grumpy, some of them. That's the main point. Some of them. I think it should be all of them. I really do think that the time they spend in their constituency, there must be a minimum amount of time because some of these MPs are absolutely taking the piss. Zolt Pal, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Happy Easter, everyone. Happy Easter to you, sir. That's very kind of you, Zolt. And Trump will hate not having the headlines for 5 minutes with that news. Yeah, belated hello. Had to do an emergency run to the shop for bacon and eggs. Well, yeah, sometimes, yeah, especially on a bank holiday, it's a bit weird. Anne Francis said, Anne Phillips says, yes, he was pretty decent as popes go, a million times better than his immediate predecessor, but that was a low bar. Yeah. And then Pygmalion there, £2 super chat. I thought it was a jail. A jail? I don't know what you're referring to there, Pygmalion. Sorry, I must have. I must have not be completely on the ball this morning. So yeah, he appeared in St. Peter's Square yesterday to wish Happy Easter to thousands of worshippers. But now, yeah, we're going to go into conclave, and then they had this famous thing where all the cardinals get together and they vote on who they want to be pope. It's a bit of a weird one considering they're God's representative on earth. Shouldn't God get a vote? Doesn't there need to be some like kind of miracle or something? And then they can say, oh yeah, this miracle happened and we can prove it using science and therefore here's the Pope. Oh no, that couldn't happen because miracles aren't real. Okay, but you know what I mean. Anton Gaudi, the the architect and painter of Barcelona fame, he's on the road to sainthood, apparently. And soon, the Sagrada Familia in Brazil should be Brazil. What's wrong with me this morning? In Barcelona, should be finished. He scolded Vance before he left. Good on him there. Yes, he did. JD Vance went to meet the Pope or something. And then the Pope died. It's a bit like Liz Truss meeting the Queen, and then the Queen died, isn't it? JD Vance then died. How horrible, says Top Manny. Indeed. One angry pagan. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Many suspect that the prospect of seeing JD that lost him the will to live. Understandable if so. Yeah, it's like the Queen going, isn't it? Although we did, I think some of us thought the Queen was just going to go on forever. But yeah, the Pope is no longer with us. I'm guessing he just didn't wake up this morning. Tributes paid after head of Catholic Church dies aged 88. He died Monday morning at 7:35 this morning. He returned to the home of his father. Colin Baker, thank you very much for the £10 super chat, my friend. After a brilliant weekend celebrating my daughter's wedding. Oh, congratulations, Colin. We're glad we got a bit of good news on here with our socialites. So thank you very much for the super chat. JD Vance is winning in memes made on individuals as Davy Crockett. Yeah, he is. The Sagrada is due for completion in 2026. It is. I'm hoping to go to Barcelona very soon to go and see it again. Last time I was in Barcelona would have been 20. I want to say 2009. I think that's the last time I was in Barcelona. It was 2009. That's disgraceful. It's been far too long. It's been too long. Where does all the time go? It's the weirdest ceremony. They raise the newly elected Pope above the bishop's heads to make sure he has a penis because there was once a woman who tricked them, says Kate Smith. I think that's a bit of a myth about raising that it's because of Pope Joan. I think Pope Joan's kind of apocryphal. But I believe that there is, once the Pope is decided that there is a Pope, there is a chair. This is what I heard, right? And it might be bollocks. There's a chair that the new Pope has to sit in, and he has to put his clackers, his dangle nuts. He has to put his bollocks, right, through the hole. It's cut out in the bottom of the seat, right? So you sit down, and you put, and then someone has to come along and just check that they're there because there is a passage in, I don't know, Deuteronomy or Leviticus or something that says no man with festering testicles may come before the tabernacle of the Lord. I know my Bible. Anyway, so I think that's why they do it. I don't think it's to prove that it's not a woman. But maybe it is. I don't know. It's a very, very strange ceremony. But yeah, it's kind of democratic. All these cardinals get to vote, and then finally they decide on who they want to be. Every time they have a round of voting, they burn their voting slips. And so it's a black smoke coming out of the chimney. They know that people watching know that there's that the votes hasn't been decided, the Pope hasn't been elected. And when there's white smoke, they put some magic powder in there which makes the smoke go white when they burn the last round of ballot papers, and that makes the white smoke that comes up. I mean, I'm all for tradition. It's kind of fun. Yeah, I all in all, Pope Francis seemed to be a much better egg than the last guy, Ratzenberger, who had huge shadows hanging over his head because of the mind-blowing scale of the abuse that had gone on in the Catholic Church around the world, and the fact that news reports were coming out that he was complicit in covering up for these crimes. Hence the Tim Minchin song. Just tucking into some homemade falafels from one of my neighbours, says Richard Grumpy Kid. Anne says, of course it's bollocks. If there aren't any, he's ineligible. Well, there you go. You have to make sure they're not festering. Simon says, was last in Barca 2015, not been back since, wonder what's happened, changed since then, FOM. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I went there in 2017. If I did, it was just to Barcelona Sants. Yeah, I did go. No, I went in 2017. I definitely went in 2017 because I went there and then got on the train as close as I could get to Andorra. Andorra doesn't have any train lines going to it. I was trying to go to every country in Europe in 3 weeks, and without flying, and I had to get a minibus. I think I got a minibus up to Andorra. Stephanie, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Your coverage against Supreme Court is best on YouTube. Oh, thank you very much, Stephanie. That's really kind of you. We've left that a little bit to one side today because we've spoken about it. We've done about 4 separate shows where we've talked about the Supreme Court ruling in the UK, which is abominable. Absolutely disgraceful. If any more comes of that, because the next thing we're kind of waiting for is Keir Starmer to say something. I did a show the other day and saying Labour's silence on this is deafening, and I guess he's doing what he always does, which is kind of like waits until he sees how things are going and makes a decision based on that. He can say, well, I'm away on holiday at the moment. I'm on my Easter halls. I'll come back and deal with this afterwards. But what Labour need to do, because this Supreme Court ruling is just an interpretation of a government act, right? A government bill, a government law. So go back and change the law to make it, change that bill, change that act to make it more clear what it means. To say, yes, it does include transgender women with a gender recognition certificate. And while you're at it, make it easier to get a gender recognition certificate. It's what everyone wants. Just do that. I have no faith Starmer will prove helpful, says Gallifrey and Ren. Yeah, I know. It's the hope that kills you, isn't it? Fucking hell. Starmer sits on the fence, then looks where the populism is, says Davy Crockett. I don't know if the populism is right word. I think that what the statistics show. I think he's very much swayed by polls and swayed by what he thinks the people want to hear. In a not. How is that different from populism? Well, with populism, you tend to find something that no one gave a fuck about, and then you tell everyone they've got to really give a fuck about it. So, obvious examples being the EU 15 years ago. No one cared about the EU or our membership of it, and suddenly it became the hot button topic of our times. In 10 years ago, nobody cared about transgender women using women's toilets, and suddenly it became the biggest issue of all time. 5 years ago, no one cared about tariffs. It wasn't a big thing that everyone was talking about. Now we've got to talk about tariffs. So populism kind of leads people to go off on one about different subjects that normally didn't really care about. Whereas Starmer's style is more reactive. And I think you're right. He will look at which way the tide is turning and say, yeah. But I think that's more based on sort of polling. I do think Labour's going to take an absolute battering in the local elections next week. I think it's going to be a real uphill struggle for them. And I think Refuck are going to take a lot of seats, which is quite depressing considering how terrible Refuck are at doing anything. Not least, actually, doing what they say they're going to do and working as MPs. At least 236 of the 650 MPs have declared outside earnings since July, the election. 32,000 hours logged of work, 32,000 hours of work logged outside Parliament by MPs in just 264 days. Some MPs have multiple second, third, fourth jobs. 7 MPs average at least 8 hours a week on second jobs. That's a full working day every week, doing work for someone else while being paid by the taxpayer to do their main job, which is being an MP. And you can look at the MPs who have the most number of second jobs, third jobs, fourth jobs, whatever. And also, they happen to correlate with the MPs who spend the least time in Parliament, actually voting on bills, etc., and the least amount of time in their constituency. Nigel Farage being the ultimate example. George Freeman, the Conservatives, he spends 11.5 hours a week in science consultancy. Geoffrey Cox, another Conservative, 9.5 hours a week in legal work, usually for other countries to tell them how to avoid paying taxes in this one. Lee Anderson of Refuck, 10.5 hours a week on GB News and content on like X and shit. And James Nash in Labour, so Labour's not, entirely not guilty of this. He previously spent 8.5 hours a week managing like a property services portfolio bullshit, landlordism. That's now been scaled back. By the way, just so you know, if we got rid of all the landlords, there'll still be houses. Hashtag just saying. Anyway, Sarah Davis, thank you very much. I recommend all my trans friends get a radar key. Thank you very much for the super chat there, Sarah. And I think that's a really good idea. I think there should be a movement for trans people to get radar keys that should be supported by everyone, apparently, because the TERFs don't want they don't want trans people using their toilets. So, and it's dangerous for trans women to use the men's toilets, clearly. So can we sort something out, please? I bet the TERFs turn against it, say, oh no, this is discriminating against disabled people. I bet they do. I bet they absolutely do that if it was made a national programme that trans people could use a radar key. But I'll tell you what, let's have a world where trans people don't have to use a radar key. They can just use the toilet of their preferred gender because they are that gender. Because trans women are women and trans men are men. Andrew, you did this week suddenly sounds like a good idea. They should be forced to report time spent on duty as an MP and do a minimum of 40 hours a week on parliamentary duty. Yeah, absolutely. This needs to change, If MPs can't be asked to show up for votes, surgeries, committee work, why are we paying them £91,000 a year plus expenses out of the taxpayers' pocket? We shouldn't pay them at all. These people who got other jobs, okay, well, you got another job, so you don't get paid as an MP. And then we'll come to Nigel Farage. In the first 6 months of him being a parliamentarian, he racked up £571,585. Over £500,000 £1 million. He's on track to make £1 million on side hustles, while being an MP. He's only voted in 1 in every 3 of all Commons divisions. Compare that with the average MP voting record of 72%. 72%, 33%. That's what the fog-faced fucking foghorn of ignorance is doing. His jobs include being a GB News presenter for £219,000 so far. And that was just up till January, I think. Being a gold bullion ambassador. This is something that all the same sort of gobshites like Trump and Farage, the crypto kids, they say, they get into gold because obviously these Liz Truss, Donald Trump type people who wreck the economy or make people think, well, I've got to take all my money out of government bonds because sell the bonds, because they're not seen as a safe asset. They go into gold. So all the gold companies that make money changing gold around, throwing it around the world, those companies are very happy to see absolute chaos. This is disaster capitalism, and it at its peak. He's as a gold bullion ambassador, he's earned over £189,000 in the first 6 months of him being a parliamentarian, and that equates to £8,000 an hour. For being a public speaker, he's earned over £65,000. For his Cameo shit, he's earned over £54,000. For YouTube and Google, he gets £11,000. So, I'm beating him on that. Thank you. Not by much, but I'm beating him on that. Super chats are open. Telegraph columnist, he gets £24,000 for being a Telegraph columnist. And this isn't a year. This is just up till January, okay? These figures. Being an ex-influencer, his friend Elon Musk gives him £5,500, £5,500, and for being on Facebook and Meta, he gets £2,700 off his friend Zuckerberg, and for being a Clacton MP, he gets £91,000, which is one of his worst paid gigs actually, and. This is what he's supposed to be as an MP is a public servant, not a self-service buffet. He thinks being an MP is just another branding opportunity, a job title to slap on his next LinkedIn vodka, his LinkedIn profile next to, I don't know, gin-fueled Brexit ghost. And Labour promised to ban all second jobs. They've now softened it to just advisory or consultancy roles. The reality is that MPs are still raking it in while their constituents, especially in places like Clacton, are really struggling. Second jobs means divided loyalties. MPs should serve us, not their private clients. And Prem Sikka, who's a Labour peer, has said, clean politics means no other job. MPs are not hired for expertise. They're hired for access. Democracy for sale. Like, who benefits from MPs moonlighting? Lobbyists, corporations, vested interests. Who loses? Well, us, ordinary constituents who can't get surgery appointment, a pothole fixed, or response to an email. And 26 MPs are also holding council roles. Some of them attend fewer than half of all council meetings. And in some cases, they're being paid by 2 different public bodies, one for being a councillor and one working on the council, and one for being an MP. The working for these 2 different bodies and to not do either job properly. As Prem Sikka said, it's access, it's corruption by any other name. But I've said before that I think councillors should be paid. It should be a full-time job being a councillor, and it should be paid. And at the moment, you get about £5,500 a year in expenses, and that's it. But the people working for the council, the people under you, They get paid. They're doing a proper job. But for you, it's just a part-time thing that you can, turn up to a debate or not in or a discussion in the town hall. You don't have to. You don't have to. There's no obligation, and so some councillors just get the job and don't turn up, don't bother doing anything like Farage did when he was an MEP. He just didn't turn up half the time. There was something like 15 different meetings for the Fisheries Commission of the EU that he was supposed to attend because he was our MP, he was MEP, he was supposed to represent the fisher folk of the United Kingdom, and he didn't turn up to nearly all of them. I think he turned up to one, and the whole time he was an MEP, raking it in on the gravy train that he railed against, getting money for him and his wife and his mistress, paid for by European taxpayers. Grifting bastard. He's there every moment of every day, thinking of ways to just feather his own nest. That's all he cares about. Feathering his own nest. Just like Trump. Trump is doing the whole thing at the moment. It's just to make money for himself. That's all he's doing. He's just absolutely... the money is just rolling in through crypto, through destabilizing the market, through investment in gold, through just stealing it from the fucking Federal Reserve by the looks of things, just going into Fort Knox and saying, I'll have that, thank you. And he's spending half the time playing golf. Spends half the week playing golf. Donald Trump does. Paid for by the taxpayer. This is going to cost, by the end of his presidency, if he's continuing the rate that he's going on, it's going to cost over $1 billion. $1 billion with a B, for the security and everything, for him to go and play golf half the time of being president. Suzanne, thank you very much to Suzanne Casey for the $2. Damn, corruption and money is everywhere. It absolutely is, but we can make laws to stop this. It's really simple. You say you can have no paid second job. You can't do it. That's it. You can't even have an unpaid second job. Unless we make a loophole that says that you can be a doctor or a nurse. There you go. Nothing else. Or you can work in your local local Citizens Advice Bureau if you want. You shouldn't need to do that. You should be an MP, and then if people have questions, they come to you and you answer them. So yeah, you tell me in the chat some roles, unpaid roles, that you think that MPs should be allowed to have while they're being MPs. And don't forget, you're not an MP for life. This is just a 4 or 5 year stint for a lot of people. Like, they do this and then they'll go off and do something else. This isn't the be all and end all. And the idea that when you are an MP you shouldn't be a professional politician is so outdated and a concept. It's a ridiculous idea. It is absolutely living in the dark ages. And don't forget, MPs didn't used to get paid until I think the 1911 Parliament Act. MPs didn't get paid. And what that meant was you could only be an MP if you were independently wealthy, i.e. daddy left you loads of money in a country pile and an MP-ship, a constituency, a rotten borough. I know they got rid of rotten boroughs a lot earlier than that, but yeah, it's fairly recent in the whole timeline of Parliament that parliamentarians have actually been paid. And yeah, that should be their job. They should be a professional parliamentarian. That's it. That is literally should be their job, because it's so important what they do. And this is why, going back to the council thing, it pisses me off that people don't see it as a proper job. Well, it's not a proper job. You've got to work your normal job and be a councillor on the side. Like, being a councillor is a side hustle to whatever else you're doing, which brings in so many conflicts of interest. And you see this in towns and cities all over the world, all over the country even, or probably all over the world, where you'll find that the road outside the councillor's house, that's perfectly smooth. No potholes there. Because they see the pothole and they're like, oh, we've got a pothole budget. Yeah, can we fix our pothole on my road? If you don't live anywhere near a council, like, good luck getting your potholes fixed. Because they won't know. They don't care. They don't turn up to meetings. And look, the vast majority of councillors are great. And they do really put the hours in and the effort, and they do really care. But that startling minority of councillors who just don't bother turning up because they just see it as whatever, it's not a proper job, which is not. If you're not paid, it's not a proper job. So I think councillors should be paid. And yes, it will cost the taxpayer a bit of money to do that. But at the same time, it will allow for a much more professionalized class of people working on these big jobs. I'm not talking about maybe like a parish council or something. I'm talking about city councils. You're in charge of the day to day of 500,000 people, and it's not even a proper job. It's not even a. That is bizarre, isn't it? You know. Anyway, imagine if you were in charge of a company that employed 500,000 people and you were getting paid $5,500 a year. It's like, what? Are you on the board of directors of this? Doesn't make any sense to me. But what does make sense is Dog 4x4, who's awesome for dropping a super chat in. I have nothing to add, but I'll help your target. Yes, thank you very much. That's really kind of you. And also, Alistair has dropped the super chat in as well. Donations, sponsorship, second jobs should be put on the clothes like F1 drivers to let you know where their loyalty lies. Morning, Graham. Yes, people have said this, like they should have like patches on them that say like Exxon and McDonald's and like, you know, Tate and Lyle. Second job, okay, but it attracts 100% tax. That's a Richard Grumpy git. I disagree, not because I don't want the tax. I think that's a great idea, but people that the companies that employ these MPs aren't doing it for the expertise of that MP. They're doing it for access. And so even if they're not getting paid, they're still getting that access. And you've got problems there where it'll set things up for once an MP isn't in the role anymore to go back to their original job. I mean, the worst example, most outrageous example, which I've given time and time before, was Ernest Marples, who was a Tory grifter in the 1960s. He co-owned a company called Marples Ridgeway Construction, who built the Hammersmith flyover. They were a company that made roads. They were a road building company. And he was transport minister. He was the man who commissioned Dr. Beeching to come in from ICI and cut out half of the train lines of the country. Rip up train lines. Leave villages, towns, even in some cases, you know, quite substantial residential areas without a railway station. Why did he do that? He co-owned a company that made roads. It's the same reason why Christopher Lloyd in Who Framed Roger Rabbit wants to steamroll over Toontown. Because he wants to he wants to get rid of the trolley cars and he wants to build roads. He wants to build a freeway. He wants to build a big road. It's exactly what happened in this country in the 1960s under Ernest Marples. And what he did, this Marples creep, right? He sold all of his shares secretly to his wife for £1 before he became Transport Minister, Secretary of State for Transport. And then once he wasn't Secretary of State for Transport anymore, he bought back his shares from his wife, which were worth millions. He bought them back for £1. And just to show you the parallels between him and, you know, Trump and Farage and all these others who go into politics, who feather their own nest, Marples left the country in the 1970s to go and live in, I don't know, Switzerland or Monaco or somewhere, owing the taxman £2 million. Nice guy. So, you know, when you're cursing because you can't get the train and it's all, the train system in this country is absolutely fucked. It's because a man who was part of government, an MP, had a second job he had a little side hustle that was worth millions, building motorways. And he wanted to get rid of the competition, which was the railways. So every time your train is late, every time you're forced to stand after spending £100 on a one-way ticket to London, and you have to stand all the way, thinking, why is this cost me £100 and I'm having to stand? You can thank Ernest Marples. Absolute gobshite. Tory, of course. But if you want the clearest example of where these side hustles end up, this is it. Ernest Marples. Look him up. What a gobshite. Anne says, with the 10th super chat, thank you. How much to not do another 15 mins? Well, Anne, unfortunately, you have just given the 10th super chat of the goal. So we have met our goal. And so, yes, I'm going to have to do an extra 15 minutes. Other channels are available. But thanks very much for the super chat. And Kieran Crossan, thank you very much for the £5. Not 100% tax. 1000% employers' national insurance. Oh, good one. I like that, Kieran. Yeah, maybe we should do that. Anne says, Flanders and Swan wrote a lovely song about beaching railway axing on the slow train, lyrical and nostalgic. Yeah. Honestly, it was one of the biggest acts of institutional, cultural terrorism this country has ever seen, what they did to the railways. Every village had a railway station. Everywhere you could get to on the train, everywhere. Now you can get to the main cities and that's about it. And it just upsets me so much. I've got a postcard, right, from, it's a postcard of a map, right, from, I bought it in the Liverpool Library or Liverpool Museum, I think. And it's a map of, it's kind of like a whimsical map of Liverpool. And it's got all of the tram lines, rail lines, and omnibus routes marked on it. And also it's got the ferry routes and where the boats went to, New York and I think like Calcutta and like these places that you could get to from Liverpool. And that was 100 years ago. And in my city, my hometown, we had a better, more efficient, and relatively cheaper transport service 100 years ago, a more integrated transport service 100 years ago. You could go, 100 years ago, you could go into Liverpool Lime Street and buy a ticket to Istanbul. You could buy a ticket to Istanbul. Does that not blow your mind? Like, you can't do that now. I know. I've done it. I've literally travelled from Liverpool to Istanbul before. It's taking trains and buses and things. It's one and then the other and then the other. You can't do that anymore. And one of the main reasons for that is because of what the Tories did to our trains. Because it didn't just end with Ernest Marples and the beaching axe. Then in the 80s, the Tories purposefully neglected British Rail. They didn't invest in it at all. British Rail was using old rolling stock that needed to be replaced but wasn't. So trains were breaking down left, right and centre. The service that was being provided was really shoddy. And so when it was privatised in 1993, even though Thatcher said, this is one privatisation too many, even though it was privatised in 1993, people went, it'll get better now. But it hasn't. It actually hasn't. If you look at the stats of punctuality and things, it's actually got worse now. And yet it costs more. It costs about 10 times the amount. Yeah, I can hear Graham all day. Lol, says Davy Crockett. Only 15 minutes, not all day. Beware, Maritja is ready to drop on any. Okay, on like a pagan. Okay. I have to read all these, Chris says, I used to believe that MPs worked for the greater good of their constituents. Now I firmly believe they don't give a flying hoot about their constituents. Some of them do. Some of them do, Chris C. Honestly, some MPs are really good. Some MPs give a shit. My MP, Mary Foy, I think she's excellent. She's very much on the right side of history on a few topics. I don't know if she's on the right side of history on all of them, but especially when it comes to things like what's happening in Gaza at the moment, she's more outspoken than others. Leonora says, at least you get to know why you feel unwell. W. James says, my grandparents went from London to Istanbul on the train 10 years ago. Yeah, you can, but you couldn't buy a ticket in the train station for Istanbul. That's my point. I've done that journey myself, but you couldn't. You used to be able to just buy a ticket and it was a through ticket. It came like a little book, I think, with, you had different tickets for getting down to Dover, and then a ticket for the steamship over the channel, there, a ticket for there to there, and it was all worked out. And that ability now should be there more than ever, because we have computers. Like, it's all computerized. It's a lot less hassle than having to write things down and send telegraph messages, Morse code down the telegraph wires to the next station to tell them that this person who's coming or going all the way to Istanbul come get their luggage. So things that should be easier now, it's actually more difficult to do that. Maybe that's something I can do. One Angry Pagan, I can stop the warnings to trolls. It's just that I'm trying to read the messages, and if it's the same message coming up again and again, it's like pushing other people's messages off the top, so I can't see their messages. So yeah, maybe, yeah. Simon Smith said it's one of the reasons why I have it set to slow mode, so people can't just write the same thing over and over again, because it pushes all these messages up the top. That's insane, Graham, says Oliver Brown. I know it's insane. My grandparents went from London. I've read that one. Ivan says, Nadine Dorris is another example. She failed twice to respond to me about my significant concerns in the pandemic with regards to autistic people. She could easily write her book. So, oh God, was Nadine Dorris your MP? Ivan, I'm so sorry. She was a terrible, terrible MP. Staring into eternity, Pope Francis met with trans people and blessed them. He also called trans women daughters of God. Good lad. Good lad. UK Medsy, like most things in life, minority of individuals ruin it for the rest and misrepresent the majority. Yeah, absolutely. But what can we do? I mean, the fact that we have so many, not just parliamentarians, but also councillors who are just not doing their jobs properly, and they're getting paid to do other jobs. I mean, we need reform. We need to demand that we have proper rules on this. They are enforced, and I want to see second jobs banned outright. Full-time pay means full-time work. As simple as that. And I think there needs to be minimum hours that are spent by parliamentarians in Parliament and in their constituencies working. And they have to prove they're working. If you're looking for a job, right, you have to prove, to get your job seekers allowance or whatever it's called these days, if you want to get your dole, you've got to prove that you were looking for jobs. And I know that can be as simple as sort of circling jobs in newspaper ads and, showing the website that you've been to and the applications that you've made. But you still got to do it. And you're supposed to do it for 35 hours a week, technically. I don't think anyone does, but that's what you're supposed to do. And you're supposed to prove that you've at least done some way to looking for a job. Because it's job seekers allowance. You're seeking a job. And I don't see why it should be any different for MPs. We're paying them. The money for tax for job seekers comes from our tax, right? Well, the money for our MPs getting paid, that comes from our tax as well. So can we find out what they're doing and make sure they're doing like at least a minimum amount of work as an MP, since we're paying them to do that? We can, MPs, as Ivan just pointed out actually in the chat, MPs not replying to their constituents. That's disgraceful. That is absolutely disgraceful. I know that, you've got 40,000 people living in your constituency. They'll write to you at once. It can be difficult getting around them. But these MPs have staff. These MPs have staff that work for them, that can write stuff on their behalf. They have to read through it and sign it off, because they can't just, have their staff, I presume, sending off any message willy-nilly in case they say the wrong thing and the MP gets the blame for it. But still, I mean, they've got staff to do it. I mean, even if they didn't have staff, they've got ChatGPT. So we need not just MPs to well, obviously we've got what we want, but then we have to look at what we can do to help make this happen. And I think writing to our MPs, demanding that they do their freaking job, or Labour make it so that second jobs are off the table, would be a good start. I would encourage you to check MPs' register of interests for your MP. Find out what they're doing and challenge them on it. Jovian, thank you very much for the £5 super chat, my friend. That is very kind of you. For some MPs, being an MP is the second job. Yeah, Nigel Farage all day long. Being an MP is a second job. And maybe something that we could make, or someone watching this could make, or whatever, or one of the groups that I'm in, push for a database or crowdsource a site to track these moonlighters and how much they're earning, so people can refer to it. So when someone puts up something positive about Nigel Farage on social media, on Facebook or something, you can respond with this website to say, check out what he's been doing on the side. He's not a good MP. And this is the way they'll run the country. And you can see that because his hero, Trump, is running America that way. For America, being the president is the side hustle. The main thing is enriching himself and his mates at the cost of everyone else. Nigel Farage wants to bring in massive tax breaks for rich, privileged, privately educated, nepo baby scum like himself. Meanwhile, they want to put taxes up for people like you. So we pay for the rich's tax cuts. That's what's happened in America with Trump's first round of tax cuts in 2018, and it's exactly what's going to happen later this year when Trump brings in his next round of tax cuts. For the rich, the poor will see their taxes go up, and they'll see the quality of the services go down at the same time. That's the future that Farage wants. Farage wants a insurance-based healthcare model in this country. He wants to get rid of the NHS. He hates the NHS because it doesn't make him or his mates any money. And they can't understand that. Doesn't compute. He needs to make money. This is all a grift. And we need to keep pointing it out to people. So a website like that would be good, but just point it out in general, saying how disgraceful it is. I mean, this is about the integrity of our democracy. And if your MP is more focused on their fucking Cameo bookings than they are on your cost of living crisis, they've got no business being in Parliament. Piss off. Just spend your time doing fucking cameos. Don't be wasting our time and our money that's being given to grifters like Nigel Farage, who are earning £500,000 a year. Oh, sorry, £1 million a year on his fucking side hustles. It's a disgrace. And when you point this out, you get the same little fucking mealy-mouthed, nepo baby bastards, privately educated, and they say, it's just the politics of envy. That's what it says, because they're quite inbred. And you're like, looking at them and go, no. There is no plane of existence where I am envious of Nigel Farage. He is a disgusting human being. He is a tramp's fucking gusset of a human being. He is a nicotine-stained man frog. I would rather be literally anyone else in this country before I will be him. Anyone. And there are some fucked up weirdos in this country who I have no intention of ever being. But Nigel Farage is the most fucked up and the most weird of all those fucked up weirdos. And he is absolutely taking the piss out of you, out of me, out of his constituents down in Clacton, pretending to be an MP, moonlighting as an MP. Taking money, taking £91,000 a year in tax money, right? Tax money. That's money that we've given in our taxes that we pay on everything we buy, on every hour we work. The rich don't have to pay tax on every hour they fucking work. They have little tax loopholes to get away with it. They're not paying for Nigel Farage. Oh, I'm creating jobs. Yeah, creating jobs. Okay, so that other people have to pay the tax. Oh, yeah, I suppose so. Oh. If you want better politics, we need to stop electing part-timers who treat Parliament like a networking event. End of. It's got to stop. It's got to absolutely stop. And I think that, in a way, Nigel Farage could become the poster boy for this grift that goes on in Parliament. I mean, Geoffrey Cox, other MPs all have their side hustles as well. Let's stop it. Let's absolutely stop it. Labour have a big stonking majority at the moment. They can do anything they want. The fact they don't want to do this anymore really bothers me. So please, write to you. I know I say this a lot, but it does make a difference. Write to your MP. And if they don't get back to you, complain to Parliament. Complain to the Ombudsman that your MP did not get back to you. Someone's got to make a fuss. And, you know, you can either just accept the world as it is and get on with it, or you can try and change things for the better. And this is something where I think we could all just chip in a little bit, and not monetarily necessarily, but with a bit of time, a bit of pointing it out to people, a bit of pressure on Labour to say, look, we've got to stop this. This is absolute madness. As I tell you what, if Nigel Farage just had to live off his £91,000 a year that he gets from the taxpayer for being an MP, he wouldn't be an MP much longer. I guarantee it. Because it wouldn't allow him to live the life to which he has become accustomed. You know it's true. That's an insult to men and frogs, Graham. That's good to see. I've nothing against Tice putting solar panels on his land, but the way he twists information to suit his own purposes is awful. Richard Tice, he's a gobshite, but he's one of these gobshites that doesn't have a personality. Like, you just see him when he goes on TV. And, like, one thing I will say about Trump and Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, all these gobshites, right? They've got a personality. And that's how they get to where they are. Because people are attracted to their personality. Not their looks, is it? Whereas someone like Tice or J.D. Vance, they've got no personality. Like, who cares? Who cares what they think? Who cares what they do? I mean, they go on TV and they're just a dead weight. You know, just the rubbish of what they do. Trying to get the, you don't see Richard Tice going on and having a bit of bonhomie, you know, having a bit of a laugh. It's something that Trump does. It's something that Farage does. He sort of laughs about stuff and says, "Oh yeah, you know, crazy Nigel getting the pilot who piloted that plane that crashed that I survived the plane crash in. You know, the one who killed himself 2 years later. Funny days, eh? Yeah, at least he sort of, you know, he does this sort of laugh thing, and he sort of laughs at himself in a way. He's a little bit. Whereas Richard Tice, J.D. Vance, why aren't you wearing a suit? You know, it's just there's nothing you wouldn't want to hang out with them. And if they were serious MPs, if they were serious parliamentarians like Keir Starmer, it wouldn't matter so much. Okay, get on with the job. You're a serious person. You're not much fun to hang out with, but you're getting on with the job. But these are grifters. These are people who are populists, who want to try and make people feel aggrieved about people coming over in boats, or about the EU existing, about trans people existing. They want to make people feel aggrieved. They want to make people feel an emotion. But these are like emotionless automatons. The worst of all possible worlds is Liz Truss, who I cannot believe is still appearing, doing talks. People are paying her to talk. She's still being paid by the Heritage Foundation to follow other people around. I don't know. She's not an MP anymore. In surveys that have been done, the biggest emotion that people feel towards Liz Truss is like pity. It's like, oh my God, because she cut such a such a pitiful character. Because she doesn't have the personality to carry off being a populist politician. It's the only way you can do it. Like the little man from Germany with the little moustache, he had a personality. Mussolini had a personality. Oh, that's how they got away with doing the shit they got away with for so long, until the glorious day came when they didn't get away with it anymore. Remove the man. Remove the problem. We're going to need a bigger Luigi. Anyway, John C., thank you very much for the £10 super chat, my friend. Aaron Banks, Farage's sugar daddy, tried to get in on the actors' candidates for WECA mayor. Bristol would give him the finger, but small towners will tug their forelocks. Yeah, Aaron Banks is just a greasy little gobshite. He's the guy who facilitated the 7 million to the Leave.eu campaign in the 2016 fraudulendum, in which it was found by an independent judicial review that Leave.eu cheated. They broke the law. Vote Leave broke the law. Believe broke the law. And when you corner a Brexiteer on this fact, do you know what they say? They say, "Oh, the other side broke the law as well." I said, "No, they didn't. Oh, they overspent. Oh, they sent a brochure out to everyone in the country telling them what would happen, and they said it would all be bad." Yeah, because it would be. And that's perfectly normal for a referendum. That happens all over the world. It happened in the Scottish referendum. The SNP sent a booklet to every constituent in Scotland, got a little handbook that said, "This is our plan if we leave the UK." Vote Leave and Believe and Leave.eu didn't need to do that. They broke the law. And when you corner these people, you say, "Look, your side broke the law." They go, "Oh, but the other side did as well." Okay, right. So you have a footy match, right? And you everyone cheats. You don't rerun the footy match without them cheating. You just allow it to hang. This idea that, oh, we don't know how much it influenced the vote. Fuck that. If someone cheats, if someone dopes themselves in a running race, you don't gauge how much of an advantage it gave them taking those drugs. You don't gauge that. You just disqualify them. You disqualify them for cheating. Simple as that. If all 8 runners were all cheating, then you just run the race again with people who aren't going to cheat. Simple as that. But we didn't get that. And Aaron Banks was privately educated. Aaron Banks, privately educated on my private school mafia.com list with 1,250 household names, all of which went to private school. Like, you talk to these transphobes who go, "Oh, there's men dressing up as women to attack women." And I'm like, no, they're not. When's that ever happened except in a fucking movie? Did you watch Psycho? And then think that was real life? Is that what happened? Because that's not real life. That never happens. Name me one actual person who has gone to jail for dressing up as a woman and murdering someone or attacking someone dressed as a woman. Go, off you pop. One, okay? Maybe they'll be able to find some case from 1856 in Stalinist Russia. Sorry, that's Tsarist Russia. Not Stalinist, he wasn't that old. Tsarist Russia. Maybe they might be able to find 1 or 2 cases in the entire history of the world. Maybe once in ancient Egypt it happened in the bogs of a pyramid or a tomb or something. I've got a list of 1,250 people. And the country, and the school they went to, and the profession, and nearly all of them are household names. If I want to prove my point about how private schools are toxic and a problem, and we need to do something about it, I've got my website, privateschoolmafia.com. If they want to prove to me that there's a huge issue with men dressing up as women in order to attack women, when 999 times out of 1,000, actually it's probably more than that, 999,999 times out of 1,000,000, it's just a cisgender man being horrible. Because that's what cisgender men do. They don't need to dress up to be horrible. They just do horrible things. Because we live in a patriarchal society which allows men to get away with murder a lot of the time. Jovian, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. You just reminded me, I wrote to my MP, a Labour MP, and she has not responded. That was several weeks ago. Well, get on to write again and say you didn't get back to me, and I'll be reporting you to the parliamentary ombudsman or whoever you report to. I don't actually know who you report to. If Liz Truss moved in next door, I'll rename the road Lettuce Way. Someone had a picture of Farage and Truss together, and they said, "Well, name the pub," and everyone was like, "The Slug and Lettuce." Straight away, Slug and Lettuce. Leonora says, "Well, all replied, Wes and Starmer with thank you, but write to your local MP generic letter. Made me feel better and will continue to do it. Might make a difference someday." Yeah, it absolutely will. Like, the MPs are just human like anyone else, and There's a lot of Labour MPs who are all right. I know we're dissing Labour because they're not quite achieving the goals that we would like them to. There's lots of opportunities that they have now with the big stonking majority that they've got that I think they should be pushing through Parliament quickly and effectively. They don't seem to be doing that, and I wish they would. I wish they would show the same keenness that they showed coming back from the Easter recess early for a day to vote on an act to save the steelworks in Scunthorpe. I'm glad that they did that, but I want to see that same sense of urgency across the country because we've got to stop looking at ourselves. And we did this in the 90s. I remember clearly just thinking things aren't really getting better. Even as a teenager, you just kind of expected things not to get built or not to get fixed. It was growing up in the 80s in Liverpool. It was dilapidated rail yards, warehouses. The industry of old was gone. We have over 100 docks in Liverpool. 100. We have over 100 docks in Liverpool. Most of them had fallen into rack and ruin, weren't being used anymore, filled with silt. The Albert Dock in Liverpool, which is now a big tourist attraction, in the mid-80s, it was all falling apart. All the windows were smashed. It was all covered in soot. The Liver buildings, before they got cleaned, you think of them now, you think of this beautiful, sort of almost white limestone on the outside of it, and it looks amazing. Whereas in the 1970s, you watch the intro to the Liver Birds, the Carla Lane written sitcom, you'll see the Liver building. It's black. It's black with soot. It looks like it's made out of bloody dark granite, but it's not. It's not. It's very light coloured, actually. It just got so covered in pollution. And this was the Liverpool that I grew up in. And I remember that feeling of like things aren't going to get better. Like things just are the way they are and they're always going to stay like this. And then that 13-year period of Labour rule from 1997 to 2010, I can't talk for everyone. I can only really talk about how it felt being in and living in Liverpool and arguably Manchester. I spent a lot of time in Manchester in those years. But seeing my city go from what it was to what it is now was just incredible. It was mind-blowing. We got an entire new city centre built. An entire new city centre. Like, we got new roads, we got new streets, we got new buildings. What once was just dilapidated, forgotten about areas of the city centre, rotten buildings, was transformed. And I might not agree with the architecture that they used to build this new stuff, but, it's better than what it was. It's much better than what it was. We used to have something called Paradise Street Car Park, and it was the irony of it being called Paradise Street because it was so disgusting. It was also the bus where you got the buses. So instead of having like an open air area where the bus comes in with all the filthy diesel fumes that come out of these buses, with the lead in. Remember when they used to put lead in fuel, right? So you'll be under quite a low cover, because you'd have a multi-story car park above your head. And it was just horrific. It was just absolutely horrific. And I remember thinking, things just don't get better. Things just stay they always stay as they are. And then we had this 13-year block of just absolute transformation. And it wasn't just the city centre. It was the potholes got fixed. The schools got computers. And the school I went to was a really, really good school. It still is. I mean, it's one of the top state schools in the country. And when I went, it wasn't a grammar school. It was technically a selective comprehensive, which was sort of like splitting hairs. It was a grammar school. We didn't have to take a test to get in. You just had an interview. Its catchment area was the whole of Liverpool. The catchment area went all the way up into Crosby. I have friends who lived in Crosby, but I had a lot of friends who lived in working class areas in Liverpool. So Tuebrook, Old Swan. I have friends who lived in Norris Green. These areas are like quite deprived areas, and they were getting to send their kids to like a really good school that had really good results, GCSEs, A levels, getting kids into university and stuff. And we didn't have lockers for a long time. We had to carry all our school books with us everywhere for the whole day. We also, for the longest time, the whole time I was there, like there was paint peeling off the walls, and we were using textbooks from the 1970s with knobs drawn all over them because they hadn't updated stuff. We had out of date periodic tables on the wall. It was the computers that were used. I mentioned this before. Were Archimedes Acorns or something, Acorn Archimedes computers, and they were just so out of date. Like I was still in school in 1997, so Windows 95 was 2 years old. The internet was starting, and we were still had this old kit from the 1980s that we were using. And I went back to my school about 10 years after I graduated to do finished my A-levels, to do a filming job. And it was like a different place. It was like a different place. It had all been decorated. There was tablets and there were, maybe not tablets, but the computers that were new and updated. It was warm. Oh my God. For our exams that we had in the winter before we took our GCSEs, right? In the winter before we took our GCSEs, we did our mock GCSEs. I don't think we did it the year before. I think we did it in the January. And in the main hall, there was no heating. We were sitting there in our coats in winter. There was snow outside. We had fingerless gloves on, writing our fucking essays, absolutely shivering because the heating had gone on the blink. We'd had no heating. And I don't want to go back to that. You get these weird old boomers who want to not all boomers, hashtag not all boomers, but you get some weird old boomers who are like, oh, I remember when there was frost on the inside of the windows. Oh, I want to go back to those days. I'm like, are you fucking mad? Are you mad? But then since 2010, I've kind of gone back to this thinking that things aren't going to get better again. There has been no more development in Liverpool. It just stopped. It's like it's been, cast in amber for the last 10, 15 years. Because they haven't built anything. Nothing's got done. It's covered in potholes now. All that's happened is entropy. So the only thing, because central government cut Liverpool's funding by 50%. We got nearly 2 billion euros worth of development funding from the Capital One initiative. Is it Capital One? No, they're a financing company, Graham. Objective One. Is it Objective One? Shit, I can't even remember what the name was. We got it off the EU. When we remember the EU, because Liverpool was one of the most deprived areas in the whole of Europe. We got that funding. We put it to good use. And now we've got corruption on the inside at Labour's councillors, like people like, Joe Anderson, old Chippy Tits, who's going down, I think. He's going to jail for what he's done. And his mate Derek Hatton, he's like a turd that won't flush. Grifters, city councillor grifters. And then we were getting screwed by the austerity government, the austerity Tory government. I mean, this is just the way that it seems to be at the moment. And so, if there was any criticism that wasn't to do with the Iraq War of the previous Labour administration, was that they didn't do enough from 97 to 2001, their first term, when they had this huge majority and they could have done whatever they wanted, and they didn't make the most of it. They didn't renationalise the trains, for instance. And I think we're feeling a little bit like that now, because we want Labour to make great strides, but Labour is too hesitant, probably hesitant to a fault. And so things aren't instantly getting better. And I know that Uncle Phil will say, well, you've got to wait for these things to go through Parliament, and then we'll see, because the Renters' Charter, the New Deal for Workers, they're all coming through. And they will actually make our life better. And I'm sure they will. And there is more money. There is more investment. There is more stuff coming in. And I know that Labour's been handed a shit sandwich. But there are certain things that would not cost anything in investment, but would get a lot of people on side with Labour. Two things that I can think of right now. Amend the Equal Rights Act of 2010 to specifically say in the act that put the definition of woman to include trans women with a gender recognition certificate. The TERFs can't complain about that. The TERFs cannot complain about that. They're so worried about a man putting a wig on to assault women, because that happens. Honestly, Gov. That's their worry. Okay, well, so if you've gone through the process of getting a gender recognition certificate, which is very difficult to get, yes, you are regarded in law and by the Equality Act as a woman. Labour can do that. Labour can do that next week. It wouldn't take long because you're not bringing in a new bill, you're just amending something. Changing the rules for MPs, I don't think requires a bill either. So that's the other thing they can do. They can change the rules and say no more second jobs. That's it. Maybe make an act of parliament if you have to. I don't think they do. I mean, I might be wrong on this, but I'm sure there's an amendment that can be made to say no second jobs. That's it. You can work as a doctor or a nurse, but you don't get paid for it. If you want to help out, if you're a good person. For £10 super chat, where the fuck were Labour when Port Talbot went down the shitter? Well, I mean, again, handed a shit sandwich by the Tories. Port Talbot had been sold to an Indian company, Tata, and they were going to close down the blast furnaces, and that's what they wanted to do. And at the time, I guess the compromise was that they would keep making steel there, but it would be electric arc furnace steel. And I don't know much about this. Look, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I just understand a little bit, which is that the blast furnaces are the ones that make virgin steel, whereas the electric arc furnaces can't make virgin steel. They can only make recycled steel, so stuff that's already been made of steel. You melt it down, you make more steel. And I guess it was less urgent for the incoming Labour government last year to save Port Talbot's blast furnaces, because we still had blast furnaces in Scunthorpe, so we still had that capacity. And they said, well, we've done this deal and it's going to cost X many jobs, but it's also going to save X many jobs. Whereas if Tata had been allowed to probably do what they wanted to, they'll probably just asset strip the whole thing and close it all down. The fact that British Steel is not a nationalised company blows my mind. Another Tory deal that they had done. And I think that with this particular blast furnace in Scunthorpe, it was our last two blast furnaces. We wouldn't have the ability to make virgin steel anymore without them. And it was clear that this Chinese company that owned the British Steel plant there, they are a Chinese company, and all Chinese companies have a representative of the government working with them. And obviously it's in China's interest to not allow us to make our own virgin steel, so we have to buy it off China. So it's their strategic interest. So, I get what you're saying, and what happened in Port Talbot was horrible, but I do believe that if the Tories had won the last election somehow, that Port Talbot would close down entirely because they didn't give a shit. The Tories don't give a shit about industry. They don't give a shit about manufacturing. They don't give a shit about agriculture. They don't give a shit about fishing. They don't give a shit about anything but themselves, to be honest with you. So, in a way, yeah, it would have been better had Labour jumped in at that point and nationalised it. But I don't think that they had the political will at the time to do it. You had a situation with Scunthorpe where even the likes of Nigel Farage were saying we need to nationalise it. Why do the Chinese have control over us in this way? Why the Chinese did have the control over us is because the Tories sold the company to the Chinese company. The Tories signed off on that. Because that's what the Tories do. Always on the grift. Probably getting a bit of a backhander. Who knows? But yeah, if you get a minute today, write to your MP and say, oi, let's stop second jobs. Give me a reason not to get rid of second jobs. I'm going to quickly go to the papers today, which are going to seem a little bit out of date, just because, the Pope's died, so that's going to be the front cover of the newspapers tomorrow. The Mirror there, State of the Nation, exclusive Mirror poll, your verdict. I think Labour are going to get their arse kicked next week. Exclusive, Amanda. The secrets of my new show, I don't know who she is. Exclusive, killing tours, sickening, trophy hunting holidays for sale at a fair in Britain. Oh God, that's horrible. Trophy hunters, Tories to a man. Like, all of them. All those people who love killing things that don't need to be dead. It is a horrible, tough, nepo baby, rich person, privately educated, gobshite thing to do. The secret to dressing like Gatsby, says the Daily Telegraph. Yeah, dressed like a guy from 100 years ago. That sounds about right. And there's a woman on the front cover of the Telegraph there. I don't know who it is, but I'm sure she's very important. I'm sure she's part of an important family that we need to obsess over every day. Let's get a picture of her or one of the members of that family on the newspapers every single day. Number 10, we won't stop pro-trans plotters. Labour MPs will try to meet to thwart court judgment on definition of women. Good news. Race to drop World Health Organization powers that could push Britain into lockdown. Right-wing shite from the Daily Telegraph. I was going to call it the Viz magazine of tabloids, but the Viz is funny and makes a point. And I wouldn't want to besmirch the good name of Viz by putting it down like that. I'm going to say to the Sun, it's the Sun, the Sun newspaper of broadsheets. It thinks it's a broadsheet. It's not. It's the Sun. John C, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. Under Johnson, Scunthorpe plant was bought from Tata by an investment company which invested 20 million and then took 40 million in commission and interest before offloading. Wow, John, that is Tory way, isn't it? Tory way. Starmer must break his silence on trans judgment. All right, obsessed much. And is Liz Hurley really dating Billy Ray Cyrus? UK cancer patients losing out on life-saving drugs due to Brexit. Exclusive red tape and costs derail trials of revolutionary remedies. So another Brexit bonus there. We're not getting treated for cancer. Michelin Impossible. Do the restaurant stars still matter? At the top here. And also we've got Zelensky saying Putin's ceasefire is fake PR. I mean, they started shelling the moment it was over. And buildings have been damaged. Picture of the Pope there yesterday. His last day on this earth. Welcoming the Easter blessings. Revealed the true cost of inhumane prison sentences in the Independent. The Times leads with two people on the front cover that need to be on the front cover of all the newspapers all the time. The same guy is on the front cover of the Express there. Disgraceful court heroes target for vile abuse. Okay. Heroes, you say? Heroes who demean and devalue trans people. Wouldn't call them heroes. I'll call them bigots. The word I would use is bigots, but then it's the Daily Express. It's the bigoted newspaper. Mini nuclear plants network for UK raises security fears. Government plans to build mini nuclear power stations across the country. Failed to adequately assess major security threats. Although there is new technology coming out of China that they're nuclear powered, but they cannot melt down. They are incapable of melting down, apparently. The Spy Who Bugged Me is on the Daily Star for some reason. We've got the Easter truce. Kyiv accuses Putin of breach, which, do you think? World confidence battered as trade uncertainty haunts IMF, International Monetary Fund, meetings. Policy chiefs gather in Washington. Growth outlook set for cut. Sentiment U-turns from start of the year. That's thanks to Trump. And also UAE deploys artificial intelligence to help write laws despite reliability fears. Please don't do that, UAE. Please don't do that. AI just messes things up all the time. All the time. Like it's your helpful little robot that gets everything wrong. Anyway, Pete's Music says, and she's ghastly sight at any time. She gives me the fear. I hope you're talking about J.K. Rowling there. I don't know. Maybe you're talking about the Queen. I agree with the Mail. Starmer should be saying something, even if they are only right once in a millennium. I feel ill. Yes. Okay. Right. Yeah. But he's not going to necessarily say what the Mail wants him to say. I don't want him to say what the Mail wants him to say. R.I.P. Pope Francis, says Cathal. Yeah, we've lost the Pope. Very careless of us. But now we get a new Pope, which is fun. Should we do that? Should we get a new Pope? Let's see what else. Health issues clouded the Pope's final months. Well, he was 88. And JD Vance pays tribute. The day after meeting the Pope dies. Coincidence? Or the devil's work? I wish more people on our side, in a way, were more stupid. That you'd fall. I know that you don't, but you'd fall for daft conspiracy theories and bullshit. Because that'd make this whole thing about Trump being the Antichrist and JD Vance being his emissary, whatever, his ambassador, who goes around just like, the Omen, just totally taking out people that they don't like. He went to Rome to take out the Pope. We were talking about Camilla, says Anne Phillips. I always think about what when Camilla's brought up. I always think about what the Scottish comedian Frankie Boyle said about Camilla looking like Princess Diana. I won't finish the rest of the joke because it's not right. It is not right, but very funny. Welcome to Papal Dome. 10 cardinals enter, 1 pope leaves, says Jez Hunt. Getting on the Pope jokes already. Pygmalion. There are different types of nuclear reactors that don't produce weapons-grade plutonium. And Leonara, or Trump's education, says pick A1. Oh, God, yeah. I think we mentioned this on one of the shows last week or the week before. But there was Trump's head of education, head of the Department of Education in America, gave a speech in which, or an interview or whatever, in which she mentioned A1 many times, kids learning A1 and how A1's going to shape our lives. She meant AI, but she thinks it's called A1. These people are in charge. They're so dense. They bend light. And they're in charge. Frankie Boyle is absolutely brutal, says Lucian. Maybe if you know what I'm referring to, you'll be like, bit much. Are bears Catholic? Asked Oliver Brown. I don't know. Do they wear a silly hat while pooing in the woods? As an atheist, I like Pope Francis. My disagreements with him could be summed up with, is the Pope the Catholic? Indeed. No, look, honestly, compared with Ratzenberger, I thought he was a lot better. Yeah, let's hope that the next Pope we pick isn't some mad right-winger who thinks that immigrants should be treated like shit. Even if, I don't know, they arrive on a donkey with a baby. Anyway, so, yes, enjoy the rest of your bank holiday Monday. Looking a bit overcast here in Durham. But yesterday afternoon was lovely. It was stonkingly lovely. Although I think I did overdo it a little bit in the garden yesterday. I'm a bit achy. Achy breaky. See what I did there? A little reference to Billy Ray Cyrus. The father of Nepo baby extraordinaire, Miley Cyrus. Funny how that works. Anyway, he liked cats. He must be all right then. He must be all right. So, okay, I'm going to get off now. I'll be back later today, this evening for Stateside at 9 o'clock. So if you'd like to join me and Mikey Famine talking about the shit that's going on the other side of the pond, please join us for that. And if not, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., not p.m., I'll be back for another Morning Brew. So before I go, just want to say thank you so much to everyone who dropped a super chat in for helping us attain our goal of the morning. Thank you to everyone who just dropped in a normal chat as well. Nice bit of discussion, and thanks to everyone for being so civil. Thank you for watching, and give us a like on the way out. We always like a like on this channel. And, if you want to, no pressure, but if you would like to have a little rose next to your name, like One Angry Pagan's got, or Sarah Davis, or Anne Phillips, all you need to do is press that little join button. And it's a couple of quid a month. That's it. That's it. And you get a little rose next to your name. What more can you ask for? And your name and the credits when I finally get around to updating it, which I might have to do later today. So thank you for watching. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and